Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are setting out on I think, a truly fascinating journey. We're looking to draw a clear line from the choices you make every day, the conscious things, the deliberate actions, to those vast, deep systems that are running silently in the background, governing your health.
Indeed. And you, our listeners, our fellow learners, have given us this incredible collection of material to work with. It's a stack that covers everything from, cutting-edge neuroscience to metabolic performance at the absolute extreme.
It really is. The mission today is to move beyond the usual advice, the sort of eat well, sleep more headlines, and really dig into the mechanisms. We want to understand how. How does something as simple as changing your breathing pattern actually influence your neural circuits?
Precisely. We're aiming for optimization through understanding. We've got insights from pioneers like Dr. Jack Feldman on respiration, which is just foundational. Then we have these incredible metabolic hacks from people like Stens Trey and Dr. Andrew Koutnick.
And we can't ignore the environment we live in. The work of Dr. Yvonne Burkhart, a toxicologist, is a crucial piece of this puzzle.
Absolutely. The material, when you look at it all together, it really proves something quite empowering. It shows that your conscious effort can dramatically, and I mean dramatically, influence biological processes we once thought were completely out of our hands.
It's the ultimate link between a decision you make today and how your cells function tomorrow. So let's start at the very beginning with the most fundamental process of all. Let's talk about the breath.
The foundation of life. Let's dive in.
Our journey has to start here. It's a process we do, 20,000 times a day about a single thought. But the work from Dr. Jack Feldman reveals this astonishingly powerful command center that governs every single breath. We have to start with something called the pre-Buttsinger complex, or the pre-Buttsy.
Pre-Buttsy, it's a perfect place to begin. And you can think of it as, well, the pacemaker for breathing. It's this tiny, tiny cluster of just a few thousand neurons.
A few thousand, that's it.
That's it, tucked away deep in the brainstem, just above the spinal cord. But despite its size, it is the absolute rhythm generator for respiration. Every single breath you take, whether you're awake, asleep, running a marathon, it starts with an electrical spark from this tiny complex.
That's incredible. And Dr. Jack Feldman really breaks down the mechanics of what happens next. So these pre-Buttsy neurons fire. What happens then?
Well, that signal activates the motor neurons that run down to your main breathing muscles. So your diaphragm and the external intercostal muscles between your ribs.
So then they contract.
They contract. The diaphragm pulls down, the rib cage expands outwards, and that creates a vacuum that pulls air into the lungs. That whole process, the inspiration, is an active, energy-consuming effort.
Right. You have to do something to breathe in.
Exactly. And this is the critical distinction Dr. Feldman makes. Breathing in is active. But for a normal, resting breath, breathing out is completely passive.
Like letting go of a stretched elastic band.
A perfect analogy. When those pre-Buttsy neurons stop firing, the muscles just relax. The lungs and rib cage have this natural elastic recoil, and they gently push the air back out. It's this beautiful, elegant, automatic rhythm that sustains us. But, and this is the key, it's a rhythm we can consciously take control of.
Which brings us to one of Dr. Jack Feldman's most surprising and I think immediately useful observations, the physiological side.
Ah, yes, the sigh. He noted that this is universal across all humans. We automatically do this about every 5 minutes. It's a double inhale, followed by a long exhale.
And it's not emotional, is it? We tend to think of sighing as being sad or frustrated, but this is something else entirely.
It's a biological necessity, a mechanical reset. As Dr. Feldman suggests, if you just sit quietly for a while, you'll catch yourself doing it. It's addressing a fundamental problem with our lungs.
Which is?
Well, you have around 500 million tiny air sacs in your lungs.
Yeah.
The alveoli. They're microscopic. And during normal, shallow breathing, some of them can sort of collapse, stick together. The medical term is atelectasis.
And a normal breath isn't enough to pop them back open.
Not enough pressure, no. That's what the sigh is for. That first big inhale, followed by that little extra top-up inhale, generates a spike in pressure. It literally forces those collapsed alveoli to pop back open, ensuring your lungs are working at full capacity.
It's a built-in maintenance program.
Exactly. Nature's reset button to make sure you're always getting enough oxygen.
So this leads us to that established link, right? We all know that when we get stressed, our breathing changes. It gets fast, shallow. So the reverse must be true. Changing our breathing should change our internal state.
It should. And while meditators have known this for centuries, Dr. Jack Feldman wanted to prove the mechanism scientifically. He asked a fascinating question. Could you teach a mouse to meditate?
Why a mouse?
To remove the placebo effect. With humans, if you tell someone a breathing exercise will calm them down, it probably will just because they believe it will. But a mouse, well, mouse doesn't have belief systems. If you can show a change in its neural circuitry and its behavior, you know you've found a real bona fide biological mechanism.
A pure cause and effect.
Precisely. And his search for that mechanism led him straight to the vagus nerve connection. This is the biological feedback loop.
The information highway, as you called it.
It is. It runs directly from the lungs to the brainstem. The lung tissue is packed with these powerful receptors that sense stretching and relaxation. With every single breath, they are sending a torrent of information up to the brain via the vagus nerve.
And this is so critical because we already know that stimulating the vagus nerve can have powerful effects.
Tremendous effects. Targeted electrical stimulation of the vagus nerve is a clinical treatment that has provided profound relief for people with severe treatment-resistant depression. So we have this direct link. The rhythm of your breathing is constantly talking to your brain's emotional and cognitive centers.
So given all this knowledge, what does the pioneer himself, Dr. Jack Feldman, actually do? What's his personal practice?
It's all about simplicity and consistency. He practices dedicated breath work for anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes a day. His go-to technique is something called box breathing.
I've heard of this. It's very structured.
Very. It's a 4-second inhale, a 4-second hold, a 4-second exhale, and then a 4-second hold at the bottom. The benefit comes from deliberately slowing that rhythm generator, the pre-bed C, right down. It's the ultimate example of using a conscious choice to optimize an unconscious system.
Incredible. Okay, let's shift gears. We've talked about the air coming in. Now let's talk about the blood that carries it and some pretty extreme ways to hack our physiology. We're looking at the work of Stenstrey and Dr. Andrew Koutnick. Let's start with blood flow restriction training, BFR.
BFR is. It's a fascinating technique. It's a method of creating accelerated fatigue. You use these specialized cuffs, a bit like a blood pressure cuff high up on a limb. The goal is to partially restrict the venous blood flow out of the muscle.
So blood can get in, but it has trouble getting out.
Exactly. You're creating that traffic jam we mentioned. This causes a massive buildup of metabolic byproducts like lactate inside the muscle very, very quickly.
And this tricks the muscle.
It completely tricks the muscle. It creates a powerful biological signal that makes the muscle think it's just lifted an incredibly heavy weight, even if you're only using, say, 20% of your maximum load. Stenstrey highlights the powerful anabolic effects this has.
So muscle growth.
Muscle growth, yes, but not just that. It sends anabolic signals for tendon, ligament, and even bone adaptations. It's why it's often used as a workout finisher or on recovery days. You get the growth signal without the heavy mechanical wear and tear.
What's really mind-blowing from Stenstrey's work, though, are the systemic effects. It's not just local.
No, it's not. And this is remarkable. If you do BFR in one arm, you see measurable growth in the other arm as well. The crossover effect.
How does that even work?
The thinking is that the intense metabolic stress triggers a systemic hormonal response. BFR causes a significant, though temporary, spike in things like growth hormone and testosterone for about 30 to 60 minutes post-exercise. It's a hormonal signal that's equivalent to a really brutal, high-intensity workout.
This sounds amazing. Revolutionary, even. Why isn't every gym doing this? What's the catch?
The catch is precision. It has to be done correctly. The amount of pressure is highly individual. It depends on the size of your limb, the width of the cuff. Too little pressure and you don't get the effect. Too much and you risk nerve damage or completely occluding blood flow, which is dangerous.
I see. So it's not something you can just do with a random bit of elastic?
Absolutely not. Proper BFR requires training and often uses pneumatic cuffs that can regulate the pressure automatically. And that adds a layer of cost and complexity.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's get to what Stenstrey calls the pesky side effect of DFR, the metabolic game changer.
Yes. The link to glucose clearance. This is huge.
Yeah.
The combination of muscle contraction and that localized low oxygen environment, the hypoxia, is one of only 2 ways the body can get glucose into a muscle cell without needing insulin.
So it bypasses the normal insulin mechanism.
Completely. When the cell is starved of oxygen, it has to rely on other pathways to get energy. And one of those pathways pulls glucose directly from the blood. This is why BFR can have such a profound effect on improving insulin sensitivity and stabilizing blood sugar. It's a powerful tool against metabolic issues like type 2 diabetes.
This theme of controlled oxygen stress also comes up in Stenstrey's work on intermittent hypoxia. This is basically simulating high altitude, isn't it?
It is. It usually involves breathing low oxygen air for a period, then high oxygen air back and forth using specialized equipment. And he makes a really important technical point here.
Which is that it's about pressure, not concentration.
That's right. The percentage of oxygen in the air is about 21%, whether you're at sea level or on top of Everest. What changes is the air pressure. As you go up, the pressure drops, so there's less push to get the oxygen from your lungs into your blood. That's what partial pressure means.
And mimicking that drop in pressure triggers adaptations.
A whole cascade of them. Increased red blood cell production, of course, but also, just like with BFR, it improves glucose clearance and insulin sensitivity through that same insulin-independent hypoxia-driven pathway.
This idea of using stress to force adaptation is a perfect bridge to the work of Dr. Andrew Koenig. He looks at metabolic plasticity, especially with things like the ketogenic diet, and his work is deeply personal.
It is. Dr. Koenig lives with type 1 diabetes, so for him, this isn't just academic. He has to manage his own metabolism and glucose on a minute-by-minute basis. This personal stake, combined with his research into high-performance athletes, gives his findings just tremendous weight.
He ran some very controlled studies on athletes going keto, and his findings on the adaptation timeline were quite surprising.
They really were. I think most people assume that after a week or two of low carb, you're fat adapted.
I certainly did.
Right. But Dr. Koenig's data showed that for his athletes, it took a minimum of 4 weeks to reach full metabolic homeostasis. That's the point where their performance got back to their baseline. The body was shifting its fuel use earlier, sure, but full adaptation took a month.
That's a crucial detail for anyone trying these diets. But then he found something even more startling. He called it the glycemic shock.
This was a genuine shock. He took a group of very fit, high VO2 max athletes, people running 50 kilometers a week, the picture of health.
You think their metabolism would be pristine?
You would. But 30% of them had resting blood glucose levels that put them in the pre-diabetic range. 30% of elite athletes. It's a staggering indictment of our modern food environment. It shows that even a high level of fitness doesn't make you immune to metabolic dysfunction.
It really makes you wonder. If they're struggling, what about the rest of us?
Exactly. It's a real wake-up call.
Now, building on this, Dr. Andrew Koenig's team also researched a very specific sweetener called allulose. He suggests it might be a negative glycemic index sweetener. How could that possibly work?
It's a fascinating mechanism. So allulose is a rare type of sugar found naturally in some plants. When you ingest it, it seems to trigger the release of a hormone in the gut called GLP-1.
Okay, what does GLP-1 do?
Well, let's think about it this way. You have another hormone, glucagon, which is like the gas pedal for your blood sugar. It tells your liver to release stored glucose. GLP-1 is the brake.
So allulose hits the brake.
It seems to. By stimulating GLP-1, it blunts the action of glucagon. It stops the liver from dumping so much sugar into the blood. The end result is that your overall blood glucose level can actually drop after consuming it. It's an elegant way to use a food input to manage a hormonal output, especially for someone with diabetes.
Incredible. We've gone from the air we breathe to the stress we apply, and now we have to turn to the world around us, the external environment. This brings us to Dr. Yvonne Burkhardt, a toxicologist whose own life was turned upside down by this very issue.
Her story is so powerful. Dr. Burkhardt's central message is that the toxins in our environment are not some abstract, far-off threat. They have a real, cumulative biological cost. Things like endocrine disruptors, especially phthalates, which are in almost all synthetic fragrances, and heavy metals. They build up in our bodies.
And this forces our detoxification systems to work overtime.
Constantly. And the main currency for detoxification is a molecule called glutathione. It's our body's master antioxidant. When you're constantly exposed to these toxins, you're essentially draining your glutathione bank account, leaving your cells vulnerable to all sorts of damage.
And for Dr. Yvonne Burkhardt, this was not theoretical, it was devastatingly personal.
It was. As a toxicologist and a whistleblower, she was working in a contaminated environment. She developed chronic health issues and, tragically, she lost her fertility. It was only after she undertook this incredibly rigorous low-tox lifestyle that she was able to recover her health and, remarkably, her fertility. She's living proof of the impact of these exposures.
And her advice is so empowering because the fixes are often quite simple. Let's start with air quality.
Yes. We think of our homes as safe havens, but indoor air is often 2 to 5 times more polluted than the air outside. It's this concentrated soup of chemicals from furniture, cleaning products, mold, and this has a direct impact on our sleep.
Contributing to things like snoring and allergies.
And reducing deep sleep. But the data she cites on fixing this is just fantastic. A study using a good quality air filter, a Jasper unit in this case, found people got an average of 18% more deep sleep
18%.
and 25 minutes more total sleep time per night. Just from cleaning the air they were breathing, it allowed their bodies to finally calm down and enter that deep restorative state.
Okay, what's next? The shoe rule. This seems so basic, but she insists it's critical.
It is. Research has found that about 95% of shoes carry traces of fecal matter and the herbicide glyphosate. When you walk around your house with your shoes on, you're spreading that everywhere.
Which is especially bad for little ones crawling on the floor.
Critically important for them. Taking shoes off at the door is a simple, non-negotiable rule that dramatically reduces the toxic load in your home.
And finally, fragrances. They are everywhere.
And Dr. Burkhart is unequivocal about them. Scented candles can contain toxic wicks and carcinogenic fragrances, those plug-in air fresheners. They're basically coating your walls and surfaces in a film of chemicals. She urges us to think of this indoor air pollution as being just as harmful as secondhand smoke.
A sobering thought. From these external toxins, let's turn inward to the process of aging itself. To our cells, and specifically to telomeres.
Ah, telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes. The best analogy is the little plastic tip on a shoelace that stops it from fraying. Telomeres do that for our DNA.
And every time a cell divides, they get a little bit shorter.
They do. And when they get too short, the cell can no longer divide safely. It either dies or it enters this dangerous state called senescence. It becomes a zombie cell.
A zombie cell.
It's a great term for it. It's alive, but it's not functioning properly. Instead, it just sits there pumping out inflammatory molecules that damage the surrounding tissue and accelerate the aging process throughout the body.
The source material uses a fantastic analogy to explain what happens when telomeres are managed perfectly. The lobster.
It's a brilliant example. Lobsters produce an enzyme called telomerase constantly in almost all of their tissues. Telomerase is the enzyme that rebuilds and lengthens telomeres.
So they're constantly repairing their shoelaces.
Constantly. This means they don't really age in the same way we do. A lobster's death is almost always from an external cause, like being eaten or outgrowing its shell. They can live for over 100 years, still regenerating and repairing.
But in humans, telomerase production mostly switches off in adulthood.
For the most part, yes. It stays active in a few key areas, like our stem cells and reproductive cells, and, ominously, in cancer cells. Cancer hijacks telomerase to achieve a kind of cellular immortality.
So the goal isn't to just flood our bodies with telomerase.
No, that would be incredibly dangerous. The goal of longevity research is to find ways to gently nudge our natural telomerase activity just enough to protect the telomeres we have.
And one of the biggest factors that actively harms our telomeres, that shortens them, is chronic stress.
It's a massive accelerator. Sustained high levels of cortisol literally erode our biological clock. The example given is just devastating. Studies of long-term caregivers for chronically ill family members found their telomeres were, on average, biologically a decade older than their chronological age.
A decade of life lost to stress.
At a cellular level, yes. But on the flip side, we have one of the most powerful anti-aging practices known, which is meditation.
And this isn't just anecdotal. There's hard science here.
Hard science. Multiple peer-reviewed studies, including one from UC Davis back in 2011, show that intensive meditation training significantly increased telomerase activity. And long-term meditators have measurably longer telomeres than their non-meditating peers. It is deep, fundamental cellular repair.
Okay, our final deep dive brings all of this together. We're looking at sleep, mood, and cognitive function. Dr. Daniel Gardenberg gives us this great framework outlining the 6 multifaceted purposes of sleep.
Right, because it's so much more than just resting. Dr. Gardenberg lists them as 1, energy conservation, 2, brain cooling, 3, learning and memory consolidation,
4, emotional processing, 5, physical restoration and building resilience, and 6, which is crucial, the lymphatic drainage system.
the brain's cleanup crew. While you're asleep, your brain is literally flushing out metabolic waste products that build up during the day, things like amyloid plaques.
And if we understand these purposes, we can use some very targeted hacks to improve sleep. Let's start with brain cooling.
This is fascinating. Dr. Gartenberg notes that people with insomnia often have a physically warmer frontal cortex. It's linked to those ruminating, anxious thoughts that just won't shut off.
So cooling the brain helps quiet the mind.
It seems to.
Yeah.
Using things like a specialized cooling pillow or even just a cool pack on the forehead helps draw blood flow away from that overactive frontal cortex, which helps to dampen those thoughts and allow sleep to come.
He also talks about the paradox of warm feet and a cold core.
Yes, counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
The ideal room temperature for sleep is quite cool. But warming your hands and feet, say by wearing socks to bed, actually helps you fall asleep faster.
How does that work?
Warming the extremities dilates the blood vessels there. This allows your body to vent heat more efficiently, which in turn helps to lower your core body temperature more rapidly. And that drop in core temperature is a key biological trigger for sleep onset.
For our audience of learners, this next one is just a game changer. Targeted memory reactivation, or TMR. It's basically the movie Inception, but for studying.
It really is. The idea is you associate a task you're learning, say vocabulary for a new language, with a specific sensory cue. A particular smell, like rosemary, or a specific sound.
You have that cue present while you study.
Exactly. Then, and this is the key part from Dr. Gartenberg's research, you have that same sound or smell gently replayed while you're in light sleep. The newer data suggests light sleep is more effective than REM for this.
And this primes the brain.
It seems to reactivate and strengthen the neural pathways you formed while you were studying, leading to significantly better memory consolidation and performance the next day. It's the ultimate study hack.
From sleep quality, let's move to mood. And this is a true paradox. Chronotherapy, using sleep deprivation to treat depression.
It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it?
Yep.
But keeping a patient with depression awake for one entire night can produce a rapid, profound antidepressant effect in 40 to 60% of them.
An almost immediate lift. What's the thinking behind the mechanism?
It's called the overarousal hypothesis. The idea is that depression is linked to a state of chronic pathological arousal in certain parts of the brain. Sleep deprivation seems to act as a kind of hard reset. It de-arouses the brain, normalizing activity in key areas and providing that immediate relief.
But if it's that effective, why isn't it a first-line treatment? The relapse rate is incredibly high, isn't it? Something like 83%.
That's the tragic flaw in the treatment. The effect is powerful but fleeting. As soon as the patient goes back to their normal sleep schedule, the underlying pathology tends to reassert itself. So it only really works when it's immediately combined with other strategies to stabilize the effect.
Such as?
Things like starting an antidepressant medication at the same time, using bright light therapy in the morning, or a technique called sleep phase advance.
Which is shifting their whole sleep schedule.
Drastically. So you might have them go to bed at 5 in the afternoon and wake up at midnight. It helps them avoid those early morning hours where the relapse is most likely to happen.
Now, bringing this into the family context, Dr. Holliday Bell's work on parental sleep is so important. She frames sleep not just as a need, but as a skill.
A skill that has to be learned, yes,
Right.
both for children and for adults. Her focus is on the immense pressure parents are under. And she makes the point that for a parent, getting enough sleep isn't selfish. It's not a luxury. It's a prerequisite for good parenting.
Because sleep deprivation makes you more impulsive.
More impulsive, less patient, less able to be present and actually enjoy the moments with your child. By prioritizing their own sleep, parents are literally improving their executive function and lowering their stress hormones, which benefits the entire family.
Finally, we have to talk about a critical and often missed cause of fatigue and brain fog, the thyroid. And Dr. Antonio Bianco shares this incredibly telling story about two math teachers.
This story really highlights the danger of relying too heavily on standard lab ranges. Dr. Bianco treated two separate math teachers, both high achievers who suddenly became debilitated by this crippling brain fog, fatigue, and lack of focus. Classic hypothyroid symptoms.
But their lab test came back
Normal. You're normal, yes. Their TSH and free T4 levels were within the accepted range. And he admits that at first he was skeptical. He thought perhaps the symptoms were psychological.
A story so many patients have heard, it's all in your head.
Exactly. But the pattern was undeniable. These symptoms were real and they were triggered by a subtle but genuine hypothyroidism. This experience forced Dr. Bianco to challenge the medical dogma about how we diagnose this condition.
He argues that measuring T3 is non-negotiable. Why is T3 the magic number?
Because T3 is the active hormone. T4 is mostly a storage hormone. It's T3 that actually gets into the cells and drives your metabolism. Now, the body is smart. It fiercely protects its T3 levels.
It's that important.
Vital. So in the early stages of thyroid dysfunction, the body will work overtime converting its stored T4 into active T3 to keep those levels normal, even as T4 starts to drop. This means T3 is the last number to fall. If your T3 is low, you're already in significant trouble, but a doctor just looking at TSH and T4 might miss the problem entirely in its early debilitating stages.
So you have to look at the whole picture and listen to the patient's symptoms.
You must listen to the patient. Functionality matters more than a number on a lab report.
This focus on cognitive function brings us back to one final piece of the puzzle we touched on. The use of magnesium threonate for brain health, something Dr. Jack Feldman also researched.
Yes, this fits perfectly here. MGT is a form of magnesium that is particularly good at crossing the blood-brain barrier. And the research showed that in the hippocampus, the brain's learning and memory center elevating magnesium levels lowered the background electrical noise.
Less static, clearer signal.
Exactly. And by lowering that noise, it significantly increased something called long-term potentiation, or LTP. That is the physical mechanism of neuroplasticity. It's the strengthening of connections between neurons. So in aging mice, MGT was shown to help slow cognitive decline. It's another example of using a simple, fundamental building block to optimize our most complex systems.
What an incredible journey. We've really connected the dots from these conscious choices all the way down to our deep, unconscious biology. We started with Dr. Jack Feldman and the revelation that a simple sigh is a non-negotiable biological reset, directly linked to our mental state.
We did. Then we saw the power of controlled hypoxia with Sten's Trey and Dr. Andrew Koutnick. How stressing the system with low oxygen gives us this powerful, insulin-independent way to manage blood sugar and build true metabolic flexibility.
And Dr. Yvonne Burkhart's work was the essential reminder that none of our internal efforts matter if we're living in a toxic environment. Simple acts like filtering our air and taking off our shoes directly protect our cellular machinery and our telomeres.
And we finished by seeing that even something as complex as sleep can be hacked with simple physical principles, and that we must, as Dr. Antonio Bianco showed, sometimes look beyond the standard tests to find the root cause of our dysfunction. The theme is clear. Knowledge gives you power, but it's the application of that knowledge that creates real biological change.
Absolutely. And we learned that these foundational practices, meditation, clean air, walking, can activate cellular repair mechanisms like telomerase, potentially rivaling pharmaceutical interventions. Which leads me to our final thought for you to take away. We discussed how simple environmental and lifestyle changes can dramatically influence our biological aging clock. So here's a question. What small, free, environmental change will you prioritize this week to become biologically younger than your birth certificate suggests?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden foundations of health.
Until next time, keep learning and keep optimizing.